Hudson County View live at Uncut. As usual, I'm your host, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, where what you see is what you get and what you don't is better yet, John R. Haitis. And of course, we have all the latest and greatest in Hudson County news, just like every other week. And boy, it has been a robust news week in the past 7 days, especially since Monday. But first of all, before we get into all that, we're going to be speaking with 2nd Ward Hoboken Councilwoman Tiffanie Fisher, and that will be coming up right after our first break. In addition to that interview, we're also going to be telling you about the COVID-19 vaccination shortfall. Obviously, dosages are scarce throughout the country, but we're talking about New Jersey and Hudson County. We actually saw Governor Phil Murphy and New Jersey Department of Health Commissioner Judy Persichilli come to Kearney just the other day, and we're going to tell you everything about that, the shortages, and what the county executive would like to see, and a whole lot more. We're also going to talk about last night's Jersey City Council meeting, where an ordinance was approved by a vote of 6-3 that would allow municipal salary increases for certain employees. So we're going to tell you what was said there and what the implications mean in this election year in Jersey City. We're also going to be talking about an insurrectionist from Jersey City, a supporter of former President Donald Trump, being arrested for the January 6th siege at the U.S. Capitol. You know him as Hector Vargas. We're going to tell you how his social media feed did him in. We're going to talk about federal court papers filed by the FBI. So all that and maybe even a little more right after we hear from our sponsors.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design studio and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net. Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Good Friend Self-Storage in North Bergen, New Jersey is a fully climate-controlled facility equipped with state-of-the-art security, packing supplies, a Refer Friend program, and multiple loading docks convenient for commercial use. Located just off of Route 3 at 4301 Tunley Avenue, Route 1 and 9. Call 201-867-2444 or visit us on the web today. Good Friend Self-Storage. Let us be your good friend.
Hudson County View live at Uncut, John R. Haitis, and as I just mentioned today, we're being joined by Hoboken 2nd Ward Councilwoman Tiffanie Fisher, who's actually joining us remotely. Fortunately, we have the technology. Councilwoman, thanks for making this a part of your schedule.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, no problem. So listen, you know, it's sleepy season for most municipalities, but that never seems to happen in the Mile Square, as you know. So the latest is, I guess we'll start with the 5th Ward Councilman Phil Cohen filing this ELEC complaint against you over what he says is a tardy filing related to 2019. So just tell us your feelings on this and why you think this has come to light now.
Sure. You know, first of all, it's absolutely true. I did file at the time. I don't know why it ended up not being posted. But I've been aware of it for a little while. So, and it was something I meant to rectify. I didn't. He raised it at the council meeting in early 2 council meetings ago. And I was grateful that he pointed it out to me, and I'm just trying to rectify it. Why it's coming to light today, because I'm on your show, simply put. That would be my guess.
Well, I mean, I guess they think I'm a pretty important guy if that's the case, which is nice, I suppose. Less nice for you, of course. But, you know, he did make a point that you introduced this pay-to-play ordinance that passed on first reading, and he's saying that you should have, I'm paraphrasing, of course, cleaned up your own house before you actually put this up. So what do you think about that?
Listen, as I said before, it's a valid point that I should have had this last ELEC. It's an ELEC that closes out my account. And I should have had it done. And every council member, every elected official should have timely filing of their ELECs, and especially for our pay-to-play, which we rely on our attorneys to kind of go through all of the pay-to-play reports to determine if there's any type of lack of compliance with our local laws. So I 100% agree, and as I mentioned, I'm taking care of it.
All right, so let's talk about this pay-to-play ordinance. And obviously, you're trying to tighten up the current regulations on the books, really the whole council, depending on how the vote goes next week. But tell us a little bit about why, first of all, why did this have to have a second iteration? Because, we actually had a vote at the end of last year. It didn't work out the way you were hoping for, and then you came back and amended us. So could you just tell us a little bit about all that?
Sure. I mean, simply put, it's a very complex law on our books. Even in working with Corporation Counsel, it just is a lot of language in it. It's probably would be better to just streamline the language. But what we are trying to do is make changes going into what is an important election in Hoboken to close just some of the loopholes. And one of the provisions that we had put in was controversial. There was only one issue that Corporation Counsel had raised when we submitted it in December, and that was that it was going to extend more broadly to family members of vendors. The Corporation Counsel felt it was an overreach. I didn't. My council colleagues felt it was an overreach, and so what we did since then is I went back and said, okay, there's still so much good in this ordinance, so I will remove this one provision that's controversial, and then I resubmitted it last time for a vote.
All right, and it passed unanimously, as you obviously recall. What's your prediction for second reading?
We've had some back and forth over the last day or so. Again, not surprised given I'm coming on your show, but I think we're going to see maybe some further amendments. Probably the biggest change in this ordinance is a loophole in our ordinance is emergency contracts. Vendors under emergency contracts don't have to comply with pay-to-play. And in a year where we're in a state of emergency, we have several emergency contracts out there. We have several large emergency contracts out there that have been very lucrative, I imagine, to our vendors. And so what this is meant to do is say, listen, we're okay with having those contracts with you, but we want to make sure you're complying with pay to play as well. And I think we're seeing some resistance specifically to those changes. So I'm going to put it up for a vote at the next meeting. I'm hopeful that we will have a majority this time because I think the spirit of what we're trying to do is supported by most on the council, maybe not all. But if we need to, go back and make some changes to that language, we'll go back and do it again. It's critically important in an election year, a major election year, when our city is filled with emergency contracts.
So we spoke previously, and there was a point not too long ago at the end of last year, and probably even longer than that, where people thought you were going to run for mayor. You've since said that that's not going to happen. But nevertheless, you wanted to make this a point in an election year. So given that you're not going to be on the ballot, why did you want to make this a priority now?
You know what? I'd say a couple things. First of all, it's still really early, right? The election's not until the fall. We don't know who's going to run. I'll say it, so it's in my own words. I have no plans or intentions of running against this mayor that in this upcoming election. And I think this is just a good provision. Like what we've seen in the past few elections is we've seen a lot of outside money come into Hoboken. We've seen a lot of money go through independent expenditure committees. We've seen a lot of money go through PACs that are used in our local elections, not for the good of Hoboken, right? They're used specifically to attack other candidates, or they're used to just fight other people that are on the ballot. And we saw that in, my election, my reelection, not individually the second ward, but, we saw a PAC set up that was aligned with the mayor. We know that they communicated with the mayor's team. They raised $30,000 from Matt Calley in Jersey City, and they used specifically that $30,000 to attack Councilman DeFusco in the first ward race that year. All of that is disclosed. So this is the type of changes that we want to make to avoid that from happening. We should let the people of Hoboken and friends and family of candidates be the ones that really, decide who is going to be our elected officials going forward. And, this is good for anyone that's running for office in Hoboken this year, as well as every year going forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
The Jersey City Medical Center. You know it for its award-winning life-saving ambulance service. It's also your health hub, with health and wellness locations staffed with certified professionals all through Hudson County. The Jersey City Medical Center, here to help you with your healthy, here when you need us the most. The Jersey City Medical Center. Visit us on the net to learn more. Jersey City Medical Center, Robert Wood Johnson, Barnabas Health Facility. Let's be healthy together.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in 10 high-rise rental towers with amenities such as the on-site Newport Path subway, light rail and ferry service, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams Supermarket is just outside your front door. A health and fitness club, spa, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. NewportNJ.com. Enjoy the New York skyline from Newport Town Square. Manhattan is just one path stop away or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Want to visit Newport? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. Go to NewportNJ.com for details. Newport has luxurious towers, great restaurants, shopping, New York skyline views, schools, playgrounds, a marina and yacht club, gym, spa, fine wine, fine living. It's incredible. It's you. NewportNJ.com. Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View live at Uncut. John Arhitis, and I am still being joined remotely by Hoboken 2nd Ward Councilwoman Tiffanie Fisher. So, Councilwoman, obviously we just had a conversation about the pay-to-play ordinance that will be on the agenda next week. So we'll see what happens at second reading. But moving on, I know that something that you've taken I'd say umbrage with this past few days is Assistant Corporation Counsel John Allen. We know he used to serve as the Chief of Staff to the Mayor, and he also ran with the Mayor unsuccessfully in 2017. And it's been a major part of this administration, I think is fair to say. And we found out that for nearly the past year, he's been working at a law firm that he was at prior to being involved with the Hoboken government, and he's doing that while being Assistant Corporation Counsel and serving on several boards, most of which are in Hoboken. So just tell us, why did you find this particularly offensive?
You know, I think probably the biggest reason I have found this, and others have found this offensive is, for the last couple of years, we have focused on reducing unnecessary expenses for the benefit of our local taxpayers, right? It's been very hard to find areas to cut. We saw a lot of fat in the mayor's office his first 2 years. He effectively, moved his advisors into different roles. John was moved into an associate corporation counsel role. And during that time, his pay increased from $95,000 his first year to what is now, combined with a stipend, almost $140,000. So over 3 years, a roughly 40-some-odd% increase. So we had a lot of scrutiny over this role, around this position in particular. And then suddenly we find out that we actually don't have his full-time attention because he has what is described online as seemingly a full-time job. So I just think taxpayers deserve accountability on the expense side. And I think we need to understand this more, right? We have two other, we just added an additional corporation counsel. We have a counsel going out on leave for a couple months, but the other two associate corporation counsels one makes 50% less than John Allen. Another one who's a woman who's directly probably his closest peer. She's been at the city for a long time, and she makes $30,000 less than him. And John is actually making more than our department head who runs the entire legal division. I just think there's a lot of questions with that. I think taxpayers deserve to know the answer to that, and I don't think it's fair to them. So that's why.
So, yeah, all right. So this is not uncommon, though, in New Jersey, right? We know we could look, several other places in Hudson, but throughout New Jersey, this is not uncommon. This is associate corporation counsels and people that work in municipal law departments always seem to have second employment at least. For example, Ed Florio, he was assistant corporation counsel for Hoboken in the mid-90s, and as you know, he was a law partner at the same time. It still is at a very prominent firm. So, this is not new, right?
You know what? I don't disagree that we see that, but I think what we have to do is we have to look at both the economic structure of all of our legal costs, because they've been growing every single year. This role in particular has been promoted and paid with disproportionate increases versus everyone else in that department. And at the same time, he's the only other associate corporation counsel that has a second job. So again, as we're looking at the most efficient use of the resources within the city of Hoboken, they've come under scrutiny for the last couple years because we've seen only rising increases out of this administration. This was just a sharp stick in the eye to those of us who have been focused on this for the last year or so. We have had multiple conversations specifically about this person, this role, and it was never disclosed to anyone on the city council. So everything about it just doesn't feel right, and I think it bears further understanding.
So the legislative branch, as far as I know, can't really do anything about this. I mean, is it accurate to say that his employment is an executive decision? I mean, is he basically serving at the pleasure of the mayor? Not because it's Hoboken, but isn't that just the way that, the Walsh Act works? Isn't that just the way that this form of government works?
So first of all, we are not the Walsh Act. We are the Faulkner Act. Walsh Act, I think, is a couple other, like North Bergen and West New York or something. But the simple answer is the only thing that in this particular case, the only thing the city council can do is basically look at the line item in the budget. So if we wanted to not fund the corporation council line as much to potentially impact that, we could do that, but you don't have the ability to point to one specific person. So we could have unintended consequences of impacting other people in that line. What I would say as well is I don't know if it's 100% unique to Hoboken, but different in Hoboken is our legal department, our corporation counsel is actually not a director. He serves at the pleasure of the mayor. Whereas in other areas, the corporation counsel is actually a director, so the city council would have the ability to remove them for cause. And so it's different here. It puts the corporation counsel in a very precarious situation when there's a difference of opinion between the mayor and the city, because he or she works at the discretion of the mayor. He's paid by the mayor. And so it creates, I think, and I've always said, I think a little bit of a conflict in terms of the structure that we have in Hoboken.
Very good, Councilwoman. We're not done yet, but we are going to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Most women who give birth recover without problems, but any woman can have complications after the birth of a baby. Learn the post-birth warning signs, such as fever, headache, chest pain, shortness of breath, increased bleeding, or thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else. Knowing these can save your life or the life of someone that you love. Trust your instincts. If you feel something is wrong, call and get evaluated by your healthcare provider. If your symptoms get worse or you do not hear back from your physician, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room.
RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Pinto Properties, Jersey City. Shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces that address your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panapintoproperties.com. Panapinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Hudson County View live at Uncut. John Arhitis, and I'm still with Hoboken 2nd Ward Councilwoman Tiffanie Fisher, who's joining us remotely. Well, I guess I got to do my homework on the Faulkners and the Walshes, but beyond that, I did want to have a moment to discuss the Palisade Cliffs Protection Act with you. This is something that you've been talking about for several months, and you've said that it's bad for Hoboken, and you've been highly critical of State Senator Brian Stack, who is, of course, Hoboken's state legislator. So tell us why you've taken this stance and why you're putting the blame mostly on Senator Stack's shoulders, even though it was, jointly introduced with State Senator Nick Sacco.
Sure. In the first instance, I don't, what Senator Sacco does for that impacts his area. He doesn't cover Hoboken. I mean, our state senator is Senator Stack. So this is just legislation that's just bad legislation for a lot of different reasons. But what got my ire up about it is, and it's interesting because people see me as kind of an anti-development council member, which I'm not. I'm very much pro smart development, has to work for Hoboken. But what this does is it takes away the city of Hoboken's ability to navigate through all of its needs on a go-forward basis artificially, right? It is meant to protect just a couple of people's views up on the hill, just above Hoboken, but it will limit our ability to expand our ratables, to develop really important projects like the Hoboken Yards project, any additional growth at Stevens Institute, make all of our NHSA infrastructure improvements, and even more recently, we need to refurbish and effectively redo our entire housing authority to bring actually livable living conditions to 1,200 families in Hoboken, and this legislation would stop that from happening. So it's unnecessary. It takes away home rule, which is New Jersey is a home rule state, and it basically just lets a mayor make legislative changes to benefit his town over the interests of all the other towns in the area, and I just don't think it's right.
Well, both Senators Stack and Sacco have said this bill is simply about responsible development to preserve the Palisade, but I guess you're saying that you don't agree with that, huh?
Oh my goodness, if I could only share my screen. Absolutely not. And I think you can look to there's a project just to the west of Hoboken that has literally gutted and clear cut the entire side of the Palisades. It was approved by the Union City Planning Board, which Mayor Stack is chairman of. And so this is just a dishonest piece of legislations if they're stating that it's meant to protect the Palisades. The other unintended consequence is, all this is doing is protecting height above the Palisades, because what it's doing in Hoboken is it is limiting the height, but it's making the projects be very wide. So effectively, it's covering like a wall, covering the entire viewshed of the Palisades as a result of this legislation and the potential for this legislation. Our mayor in Hoboken is kind of honoring Mayor Stack at this point. He is, choosing the interests of Union City over the interests of Hoboken on this, which I think is a huge problem. But that's just, the decision he's taking. We are feeling that in all of the developments along the west side of Hoboken in particular, where we've had developers say to us, if we've asked them to make it a more architecturally interesting project, to not block view sheds on streets. And the response we've heard from developers is, if only, you would let us go taller, but the mayor is saying we have to keep it short to accommodate Senator Stack.
Well, an interesting tidbit for sure. We're running a little short on time, actually. But real quick, we've established you're not going to run for mayor, but have you considered being on the ballot for anything else before 2021 comes to a close here?
No, listen, it's Hudson County is a tough place to run for election. Hoboken in particular, we have what I keep hearing is an unbeatable state senator, and we have 2 assembly people. Annette's our assemblywoman. I think she does a good job. I'm not happy that she supports this bill, but generally I think she does a good job for Hoboken. It's tough to break into that. So as of right now, the answer is no.
All right. Very good, Councilwoman. We, again, appreciate the time. Pleasure to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back.
Stevens Jersey City Ford, located right off of NJ 440 North. Across the Hudson Mall is your one-stop for all your automotive needs. Check out Ford's latest models like the 2020 Ford Fusion with its stylish looks and hybrid options, or the unparalleled high-performance 2020 Ford Mustang. The 2020 Ford F-150 Raptor is ready for those rugged off-road terrains with trail control. Need a mid-sized truck for your towing and hauling? The 2020 Ford Ranger will deliver. The 2020 Ford Escape is a luxury SUV that was made for comfort and adventure on the go. Returning is Ford's legendary Bronco, which takes you back to the true meaning of off-roading. They are now available for pre-order in our showroom or on our website. Let us help you find your next vehicle. Stevens Jersey City Ford, 201-432-7272.
Hudson County View live at Uncut, John R. Highness. So, like I said, we have a few other topics that I wanted to touch on today. So, we're going to do a little hurry-up offense here. So, let's talk about the COVID-19 vaccination dosages that have a lot of county officials concerned here. So, we saw Governor Phil Murphy showed up at the Kearney vaccination site, which is the Hudson County operated site, and that was on Tuesday. And while Governor Phil Murphy, who was just there for a few minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes, offered a lot of praise, he said New Jersey is committed to an equitable distribution process, and he went on to continue that we could only accomplish this through partnerships with our local and county governments, and I applaud County Executive Tom DeGees and his team for supporting our state's aggressive vaccination efforts. So obviously he sounded like a guy who's pretty pleased, right? But when I spoke with the county executive himself, he said that last Friday actually, they did 1,200 vaccinations at the USS Juneau Center. That's the Kearney facility that they're not doing the mass testing. And now for this week, they only have 1,300 for the entire week. So he said to me, we're not going to be able to match with what we know we could do. We could do better than 1,200, but we need the dosages. So there's an obvious shortage here. And again, it's a nationwide problem, as I said at the top of this program. But we're going to hear more from Tom DeGees and a little bit from the New Jersey Health Commissioner in this clip. So just sit tight. We're going to throw that up right now.
Here in the Juneau Center, we vaccinated over 1,200 people on Friday. This week, we got 1,300 for the entire week. So we're not going to be able to match what we know we can do. We could do better than 1,200, but we need the dosages. But that's a story that, from Cape May to High Point, that's everybody's singing the blues on that one. But our very congested county with a lot of senior citizens, a lot of people without the availability of a car or transportation, here are having some, difficulty getting online.
As you know, there was a report last week that said the state was removing themselves from the vaccination process, where the county will be working directly with the federal government to allocate the vaccination. So, could you say anything to that? Is that your understanding of what's going on here?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on, and we welcome the challenge. We also, with the CARES money that was available earlier in the pandemic, the county was the one that devised ways and separated the money for rental help and for small business help. So we know how to do it. I think they figure the counties could do it better there. We have more in touch. Who knew about the Juneau Center until this happened?
There's a lot of frustration about getting vaccine. We get about, in New Jersey, for the last 4 weeks, we've gotten 53,000 Pfizer doses and 53,000 Moderna. That's 100,000 doses for the whole state. And we try to allocate it as best possible. But we don't have enough. We just don't have enough.
So very briefly, we're also going to touch on two other things related to Jersey City. So Hector Emmanuel Vargas Santos, who you probably know as Hector Vargas, was charged with a 4-count information accusing him of entering and remaining in a restricted building, disruptive and disorderly conduct in a restricted building, violent entry into a Capitol building, and parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building in relation to the January 6th resurrection in Washington, D.C., obviously at the United States Capitol. Vargas was 33 years old when he was arrested for terroristic threats in Jersey City after police responded to a domestic call in July. And the thing that really did him in was a Facebook post that said, "We took over the U.S. Capitol." And actually, he said, "We took over this mother, you know what? We took over this effing Capitol, tell them." And, we saw how that ended. Unfortunately, that's all we got time for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you shortly. Have a great week.